This is the Snapmaker U1, which, in a nutshell, is a mashup of the Bambu X1 Carbon and the Prusa XL. It's the first affordable tool changer we've seen on the market that isn't a do-it-yourself project. Now, this isn't the review I planned on making of this printer, but in some ways, it's going to be even more insightful. I'm not going to be able to show you any test prints or talk to you about the user experience, because this machine was dead on arrival, and it still doesn't have a pulse. But I'm going to talk to you about repairability, ease of maintenance, and the quality of this company's customer support, which are so often overlooked in traditional 3D printer reviews. As reviewers, we can only talk about our firsthand experience, and we're usually under a time crunch to get these videos out. So if we don't experience any failure modes in our short time of testing, then we won't have the opportunity to share with you, the viewer, how repairable these things really are. And the fact is that repairability of 3D printers varies widely from brand to brand, and it's of the utmost importance for the end user experience. Most are manageable with some effort, while some others are a huge headache. And some are as good as garbage when certain things break down. But before we get to tearing this apart, let's see what parts it's made up of. The U1 has 4 independent tool heads, which solves the issue of waste in multicolor printing and eliminates the possibility for cross-contamination in multi-material printing. When I say it's a mashup of the X1C and the XL, I mean it. Not just on paper, but in practice. The X gantry has the iconic carbon rods of the X1C, and the tool changing mechanism, while not identical, bears a strong resemblance to the XL. In terms of build volume, it's somewhere in between, 270 by 270 by 270, edging out the 256 cubed of the X1C, but falling short of the 360 cubed of the XL. But what it has going for it that the XL doesn't is that it's enclosed from factory, at least on 4 sides, and they will be selling an optional lid. And unlike the X1C, the back panel isn't solid, it's a viewing window, which lets a lot more light in and makes the visibility into the machine much better. They've accomplished this by rotating the Z-axis motion system by 90 degrees and relocating the electronics to the sides. Besides the different orientation, the Z-axis is nearly identical to that on the X1C. It's comprised of 3 lead screws, all of which are coupled together by a belt underneath. The motion system is Core XY, but instead of a permanently affixed tool head riding on this gantry, we've got a modular carriage that mates with the couplings on the front of each tool. On the XL, the carriage contains no electronics. It's strictly a mechanical mechanism. On the U1, however, the part cooling fan stays with the carriage and is coupled electrically to the tools as they are picked using pogo pins to make the connection. This means there's only 1 fan total instead of 1 on each tool. This reduction in parts helps keep costs down, but increases the chance of component wear. Typical pogo pins are rated for between 10 and 50,000 cycles, so we may eventually see these wear out and need replacing. The back of the printer is where the tools are docked when they're not in use. Here again, we see a mashup of ideas borrowed from Bambu and Prusa. The docks are similar to the XL. There's a silicone seal to prevent the nozzles from oozing when they're parked. But something the XL doesn't have that this U1 does is a nozzle wiping solution with a waste bucket to catch any debris. This is something I felt was missing from the XL. There's aftermarket mods to add them, but it really should be included from factory, especially when you're relying on nozzle probing to generate the bed mesh, which, by the way, the U1 does too. There's a pressure transducer in each tool head that detects contact with the bed. In contrast, the X1C has load cells in the bed itself to detect nozzle contact. Typically, the force required to register contact is less when the sensor is in the nozzle, which can make the mesh measurements ever so slightly more precise. One of the most tedious parts of printing on the Prusa XL is the process of loading filament. The PTFE tubes are long, and you need to push the filament all the way to the tool head to get it loaded. On the U1, this is a motor-assisted process. The sensors on the sides detect filament presence and initiate auto-loading. So I said this was a mashup of the X1C and the XL, but there's clearly some inspiration taken from the Bambu A1 as well, and that's in the form of these spool holders. The difference, however, is that these aren't spring-loaded for auto-rewinding, which I find a bit surprising and disappointing. The motors for loading could easily be run in reverse to unload the filament, but the spool would need to turn to rewind it, which it doesn't. A spring would accomplish that, but these U1 spool holders don't have it. Now let's turn our attention to the tool heads, which, by the way, is the root cause of my troubles. A magnetic back cover is easily removed to reveal the internals. Each tool head features a dual gear direct drive extruder, which is integral to the chassis. I tried, but couldn't figure out how to get it apart for service, which isn't reassuring. Contrast this with the X1C, on which the extruder can be easily removed for service or replacement. The hot end, on the other hand, is easy enough to remove, and it will look very familiar as well, almost identical to that from Bambu. And it's here that the issue originated that caused my printer to be dead on arrival. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but first, a word from today's sponsor. I have a lot of tools that I use in my 3D printing workflow, but none of these is the most important. This is a sturdy, ergonomic work surface. Except this isn't sturdy or ergonomic. That's where the sponsor for today's video comes into play. Flexispot is a manufacturer of premium standing desks. This is their E7 Pro model, which is built like a tank. It features 2 strong lift motors and a nice flat work surface. I was impressed by the build quality right out of the box. It went together easily with a few basic steps. The controller allows you to configure presets for standing or sitting. It's just missing a setting for laying down, because yeah, it's strong enough to lift me. By replacing my old flimsy table with this new desk from Flexispot, I'm able to do my work without leaning over and hurting my back. So if you're ready to upgrade your workspace, check out all Flexispot has to offer by visiting the link in the description, and use the code on screen to save $50 off your order. They're currently running a 9th anniversary sale with up to 65% off, so now's the perfect time. Alright, back to the video. Assembly of the U1 is straightforward. It involves docking each tool and connecting them electrically via USB-C, while also installing a strain relief bracket. Then we add PTFE tubes, one segment from the filament inlet to the back of the printer, and another from there to the tool head. Some clips are then added to help hold the cable and tubing together. The spool holders and filament sensors will also need to be installed after unboxing. These simply clip into place. Unfortunately, shortly after doing all of this, I had to undo it. On initial power up, I got an error in the web interface indicating that the firmware couldn't communicate with the MCU on E0, which is the furthest tool on the left. In speaking with Snapmaker technical support, they advised that I unplug each tool in sequence while probing for continuity on this test point on the toolhead hub PCB. If there's continuity, that means there's a short somewhere in the electronics. If I unplug a particular tool and the multimeter stops buzzing, that will identify the source of the short. In order to do that troubleshooting, I first had to do some disassembly. And this is where I could have been in for a huge headache had this printer not been designed with repairability in mind. I dedicated an entire video to this topic when I experienced a fault with not 1, not 2, but 4 of my Bambu X1Cs. It was related to the heat bed signal cable. I described the process for disassembling those printers and servicing them, which, well, not as difficult as I initially perceived, was a significant undertaking. And it became clear to me through that process that those printers weren't really designed to be taken apart. On the other hand, the Snapmaker U1 came apart quite easily. There was just a few screws on either side to get the panels off, a few on the top to remove the bezel, and a few on the back to remove that cover. And from there, I had full access to all of the electronics. You can see on the side panels the coils used for RFID detection of filament type on the spool holders, which is a nice feature. With the top bezel removed, I gained access to the toolhead hub PCB for testing. Having identified the source of the short as originating with E3, I plugged it back in, with the power still on, and I let the smoke in. Further diagnosing revealed that the 24 volts needed to supply the hot end heater cartridge was somehow getting fed back where it shouldn't be. After unplugging that, I was finally able to communicate with the hub PCB, and the firmware was talking to E0, E1, and E2. E3 was getting power, but the signal part of the connector must have gotten burnt, because the firmware couldn't talk to it. Snapmaker support was quick to send me a replacement hub PCB and toolhead, which I installed as per their instructions. But unfortunately, the issues still didn't go away. It seemed that the surge went all the way back to the mainboard, frying the serial interface or otherwise damaging it in some way as to make it inoperable. And that's where we're left. The replacement motherboard is in the mail. So I can't tell you about the print quality or their user experience, because I've yet to power this up successfully. I'll be covering those aspects in my follow-up review. But I can tell you that tech support was very helpful in diagnosing my issues, and that this printer is much easier to service than many others on the market. And speaking of those other options on the market, with this feature set at this price point, the Snapmaker U1 is going to put a lot of pressure on the others to catch up. It's launching on Kickstarter, so bear that in mind. But it has an early bird price with deposit of just $679. Even the regular retail price of $999 offers tremendous value relative to the competition. The XL, while bigger and with one additional toolhead, is multiple thousands, not accounting for the cost of the optional enclosure. The U1 comes in at less than the cost of the X1C combo from Bambu, while running circles around it in terms of throughput and waste production for multicolor and multi-material 3D printing. And what's even better is that it's running open source Klipper firmware, nothing proprietary, which honestly came as a big surprise to me. So much more is possible with a universally recognized platform like that provided by Klipper. It opens the door for the type of mods, customization, and even just general updating that you don't get in a closed ecosystem. Bambu's firmware is a fully walled garden, and as much as they might say otherwise, Prusa's might as well be because it's too difficult for the average user to configure. Klipper, on the other hand, has all of the firmware configuration options front and center, and it won't, at least in the foreseeable future, be abandoned and stop receiving updates. So if the U1 can deliver in terms of reliability and ease of use, it's going to seriously pinch the market for the competitors' offerings. But I'd love to know what you think. Is this going to disrupt the industry? And what would you like to see covered in my follow-up review? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. My name's Taylor, this is YGK3D, and until next time, happy 3D printing.